I left a note on a counter that didn't belong to me. The kind of hour that makes even brave people whisper. And I carried my son out into a snow that stung like salt, telling myself if I moved fast enough, maybe fear wouldn't catch us. Maybe love wouldn't either. That's the hook, right? But if you want the truth, you have to rewind a little back to a small airport cafe in Ash Creek where the bell over the door chimed like a metronome, and my hands were always red from hot water and cheap soap, where I wore the same apron every morning and smiled like a habit, because surviving has a face you put on. He said large cappuccino, no sugar, and my body recognized the voice before my brain did. Then I saw him at gate C7 in a tailored gray suit with a black duffel and that posture like a decision. Colton Reeves, my first real love, the boy who once read poetry in a laughable accent and promised he'd build something from nothing, the man who left when the floor fell out and never wrote back. I looked down at my scuffed sneakers and did what pride does when it gets scared. Pretended to clean a counter that was already clean, but there's no hiding from timing when it's ready to mess with you. An elderly man dropped a canvas tote and pill bottles rolled like marbles, and I knelt to help because that's who I am. And when I looked up with the last pack of crackers in my hand, my eyes hit his, and 10 years collapsed into a heartbeat. He came to the counter during my break, and we sat by the window because there's no corner big enough for old history. He asked how I'd been, and I said fine with my best waitress smile. Then I told the truth without the details. I have a son, Eli, he's 5. And Colton's face softened in a way that made my chest go warm and unsettled. His flight was boarding. He slid me a card like a peace offering. No pressure, just in case, and I tucked it beside the spare hair tie I used for emergencies, not sure if that was symbolic or pathetic. Days later, my landlord gave me 24 hours to solve math that never adds up when you're short on rent, and I wanted to be the kind of woman who never asks for anything. But there was a suitcase by the door, and a little boy clutching a rabbit with one ear chewed flat, so I swallowed pride like a dry pill and texted, "Hi, it's Ava from the cafe," and he replied in seconds like he had been waiting. A black SUV pulled up to the curb the next morning, and Colton stepped out, saw the panic I was trying to hide, and said, "Come stay with me just a few days." Not charity friendship with a spare bedroom. And I said, "I don't take handouts." And he said, "I'm not offering a debt. I'm offering a door." You know what I mean? Sometimes you hate the exact help you prayed for. His house felt like a museum exhibit on calm light everywhere, a fridge that hummed like a whisper. And I slept that first night like a guard dog with one shoe on, then woke at dawn to make eggs because feeding first is how I mother. Colton came down in a white shirt with rolled sleeves like he was trying to look relaxed, and failing sniffed the air and smiled like he'd forgotten what breakfast smelled like. And from there, it wasn't grand gestures. It was small adjustments. Almond milk in the fridge for Eli. A low shelf in the guest room suddenly holding picture books. A soft lamp appearing without anyone saying a word. One windy night, Eli burned hot, and my heart turned to marble. I did the cool cloth, the tiny sips, the whisper stories, and Colton did the steady thing. Called the doctor at midnight, pulled up a chair too small for him, said, "We'll take turns together," and I cried in the hallway, where no one could see me except he did, and he just handed me a glass of water and put a warm hand on my shoulder for 3 seconds, long enough to steady, short enough to respect. We found a rhythm. Library trips where Eli picked frog books with tragic seriousness, Sunday sandwiches on a blanket, because sunlight is medicine. The tie trick at bedtime, where Colton let Eli wear one of his ties and practiced the loop, and I stood in the doorway, biting my lip, so I wouldn't cry at a life that felt like it was choosing us back. Then Eli brought home a crumpled drawing. Three stick figures under a yellow sun, hands touching mommy, me, and my CEO dad. And Colton laughed, the kind of laugh that tightens your throat, and said, "I've been called worse." And I folded the paper like glass and slipped it in my bag. That night, he set a mug of tea by my elbow and said, "You're more organized than most of my staff. If you want something flexible, I could make space," and I shook my head. "Thank you, but no, I need to stand without you first. I need a paycheck that doesn't have your shadow on it." And he nodded, then later found me staring out a dark window and said, "I never stopped loving you," and I said, "I'm not that girl. I'm older, tougher, a little meaner in the ways that keep a roof over our heads, and it scares me how safe you feel." And he didn't argue, he let the fear be true. The past found us anyway. The doorbell, a baseball cap pulled low. Darren with the soft voice he used when manipulation wore church clothes. "I've changed. Let me see my son." And when I said no, the eyes went cold, like they always do. He left smiling, like trouble, and the texts started. "You owe me a second chance, bring me 100 grand. Get it from your rich friend. He won't miss it. You think you can hide behind him forever." Threats buzz even when the phone is dark, you know what I mean. I met him at a diner off the interstate under a neon sign that buzzed like regret, coffee burned to tar, waitress calling everyone hon. And he leaned in and said, "Pay me or I'll go to court. I'll say you kept my son from me. I'll say you're unstable." And then he played the card that still had teeth. "You don't want your CEO knowing you came from nothing, do you?" And the words found the softest part of me and pressed down hard. That night I wrote the note. "Colton, I'm sorry. Don't come looking for us. It isn't safe. You gave me more than I thought I deserved." Then I folded it once, twice, placed it where the morning would find it, and carried my boy into snow that swallowed sound. He did the thing I had both hoped for and dreaded. He looked anyway, drove to every bus station, every shelter, every place fear might choose to rest, knuckles red on the wheel, eyes burning, until he saw us at daybreak on a metal bench at the far side of town. Eli, asleep upright in my arms, rabbit's ear, damped me with that hollowed-out look you get when love and panic wrestle all night. He knelt eye level, no speech, just the simple sentence that cracked the ice. "You were never dragging me, I choose this, the mess, the past, the both of you." And I said, "He threatened to take Eli, he wants money. I can't let you get hurt." And Colton said, "I love you. I love the way you hold your boy, like he's the whole world. I love him too," and air came back like a mercy. By noon, there was a lawyer in his office, a man who talked like a scalpel. Every threat printed, every timestamp cataloged, filings stacked for a protective order and charges, blackmail, harassment. The big words that fit exactly, and if you've ever crawled out of abuse, you know paperwork can feel like too much and not enough at the same time. The hearings took months. The nights were long, every car on our street sounded like a question, but there were small victories. Eli sleeping through me, cooking in a kitchen that started to feel like ours. Colton learning to braid 2 inches of hair, then giving up with a laugh. And slowly we were a family. Not because a judge said so, but because the days kept choosing us. We married a year later under string lights and white flowers his sister insisted on arranging. I wore a borrowed dress and paid for alterations with favors. Eli took his ring-bearer duties like a mission. We said vows with no poetry, just the words we had earned. "I choose you, and I choose the nights you did one more thing when you had nothing left. I choose your past without editing it, and your future without controlling it." And when the officiant said, "Kiss the bride," Eli yelled, "Group hug," and crashed into us. And yeah, that happened. And it's my favorite tradition now. You want the twist that sticks, though. It didn't end with cake and photos, because life rarely respects finales. Darren posted a grainy video on a burner account, called me a climber, said a rich CEO stole his family, said the system only believes women with money behind them, and strangers with sharp opinions and zero context showed up in the comments like they'd been paid in outrage. A reporter asked for a quote. An older neighbor left a pie and a note that said, "We're with you, but maybe keep a lower profile for a while." Lower than what a woman going to work, and a boy riding a scooter in the driveway. Our lawyer said, "Ignore it. The court already ruled what matters, and part of me wants to, but part of me wants to stand on the porch and tell the truth loud enough to rattle the gutters, my voice, my name, my story. I haven't decided which door I'm walking through yet. Let gossip tire itself out, or confront it head on. And maybe that's the point. I'm not running anymore. I won't be bullied out of a life I bled to build. I won't apologize for having help, or for choosing love that comes with a mortgage and a minivan, and a set of keys on a hook by the door. Survival used to be enough, now I want more. The kind you earn, not the kind you steal. So tell me, if you were me, would you fight the noise or starve it of oxygen? Does blood alone earn a second chance after years of absence? What does justice look like outside a courtroom? In kitchens, in schoolyards, in comment threads where people are their bravest and their worst. Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you want more honest stories told without the gloss. And if this hit a nerve, share it with someone who needs to hear that safety is possible, love is real, and being believed shouldn't depend on a bank balance.